So here we go. I will not make a pick in this game, but let's preview the game that I will be at with Gus and Ginny. Big noon kickoff. We're headed up to the Cy-Hawk game as Iowa goes on the road to face Iowa State. Now, first and foremost, these games are always tight. This is one of the most underrated quality rivalries in all of college football, and I can't wait to get up there because, again, it's going to be a great scene. Ames, Iowa, underrated home field environment right there in Ames. I think Iowa State is a really good team, and now this is their third game, so they've already got a chance to have a couple of, I don't want to say marquee, but really quality wins here in the opening 3 games of the season. They played week 0 in Ireland against Kansas State. They got the win. Rocco Becht, their quarterback, experienced guy, and he's a guy that made some plays down the stretch. Now, remember, in the offseason, I was questioning how they were going to replace Knoll and Higgins on the outside. Both of those wide receivers went to the National Football League, really quality players. So there's some question about their wide receiver play. I think that remains. We're going to find out a lot about those guys as they take on Iowa and what always is a really quality defense for Kirk Ferentz and the Iowa Hawkeyes. But again, I want to go back to Becht. This is a guy that I think is one of the better players in college football, and in particular when it comes to crunch time. In fact, if you look back through his career, he's got 5 fourth-quarter comebacks. So there's a feeling around Iowa State that it's like, hey, just get us close. He's one of those guys that the entire program, the entire sideline, team, offense, all of them, they believe that Rocco Becht will make the plays necessary to win the games when it's tight late in the game. And that's a huge advantage when you're talking about playing a game that we expect to be a tight game. He made those plays against Kansas State. They got that win. They won last week, and they're looking for their 3rd win and looking to go 3-0 here early in this season. Iowa State is a team that continues to build. Matt Campbell, their head coach, has done a terrific job at Iowa State. He's one of the better coaches in America, and he's had his chances over the last few years to actually leave, take maybe higher profile jobs, and he has not done that. Got a contract extension during the offseason. He has stayed there and built something that is really sustainable, and I got to tell you, I commend him for doing that. There's something, too, in this sport, not always leaving. And the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And now Matt Campbell is in a position where this is fully his program. All right. Everything that he needs and wants to be competitive at the top end of his conference is right there for Iowa State. Now, are there challenges? Sure. Sure, there's challenges. Is it a blue blood? No, it's not a blue blood. But this guy understands what his philosophy is, how he's going to go about it. And so every single year, you're going to get a team that's really well coached. They're going to play extremely hard. And when they have the players, and in particular, the experience necessary, this is a quality team that's hard to beat, in particular at home. Now, on the flip side, let's talk about Iowa for a moment. Iowa with Kirk Ferentz has something to do, a chance to do something historic this week. Kirk Ferentz has 205 wins in his career, which is remarkable, by the way. You talk about consistency. Kirk Ferentz has been consistent. One of the few guys that actually is still in his position since I started doing this job. Almost everybody else is new. Guys like Kyle Whittingham, Mike Gundy, and Kirk Ferentz, they're the only guys that were in their positions when I started calling college football games 15, 16 years ago. And that consistency has paid off. So many quality years. Such a tough team to beat, and in many ways mirror Iowa State in the sense that you're always going to get a team that's fundamentally sound. They're going to tackle well, they're going to play hard, and they're going to play physical. And they know their identity. Their identity is going to be a physical, run-oriented attack on the offensive side. They're going to play quality defense, and they're littered with experienced players on that defense. In fact, as I'm going through that, I've got this chart. So I keep a rough draft of my chart, and I'll show it to you. If you're watching on YouTube or FS1, you will see this chart. So this is a rough draft of the chart. And so I have this chart, and I've got the lineup board. You can kind of see it right there. It's hard on the white sheet. But I'm going through it, and I'm just studying as the week goes on. And you look at this Iowa defense, and you start to think, like, in the 2 deep, all I'm seeing is like, okay, he's a 4th-year junior. There's a senior, 4th-year junior, 4th-year junior, senior, graduate, 5th-year guy. They are littered with experience. So while there might be new faces from a starting perspective, a lot of these guys have been in the program forever. And if you've been in the program forever on that side of the ball, nothing has changed because of Phil Parker and that defense. Phil Parker, the defensive coordinator for Iowa, is one of the better defensive coordinators in the entire sport. He does more with less than maybe anybody in college football. And every year, they're tough to beat. Philosophically, this is how the defense goes. They're going to maintain their levels of defense so they never get themselves in a position where just one crease can beat them for a big play. Maintaining their levels keeps the ball in front of them, and then they force the opposing offense to snap it 9, 10, 11 times in order to score. Last year, that wasn't the case against Iowa State. They gave up some of the big plays, which is why Iowa State won that game. But that defense should play very well, and they've got an offense now led by a guy that I think could have a big year. He didn't have a big week one, but Mark Gronowski, their quarterback, comes in. He's a transfer from South Dakota State, and Gronowski has already won in his college career 50 games as a quarterback. I keep telling you that experience is a big deal in this sport, and it's becoming even a bigger deal as the transfer portal era and NIL era now is starting to come into its third and fourth year. And that experience is going to pay off. Again, they didn't have to throw it all that much last week. 8 of 15 was Gronowski for 44 yards. Doesn't look that great. He did have a touchdown, but they didn't need to. They ran the ball for over 300 yards. The Hawkeye offensive line, one of the more underrated offensive lines in the Big Ten. They've got good backs, and this is a team that, again, knows its identity, and they understand their philosophy. This is going to be a war. It always is. The Cy-Hawk game is always a fantastic game. Gus, Jenny, and I cannot wait to get to Ames. I fully anticipate this to be fairly low scoring, and I anticipate it to be close late. If that happens, pinch me. I'm going to be as happy as you can possibly be because those types of games are always fun to call. So that one's Iowa at Iowa State. Iowa State, by the way, ranked again, looking for their third win. Huge game in the Big Ten SEC narrative, and really the biggest game of the weekend. Oklahoma hosting Michigan. Now, we've been pointing to this game the entire offseason as Sharon Moore rebuilding, getting a new quarterback in Bryce Underwood, and now he's got to go on the road against Oklahoma. Oklahoma under Brent Venables looking to bounce back. Last year was not what Oklahoma wanted it to be, and they're looking to bounce back. They got themselves a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterback in John Mateer. So 2 new faces at quarterback for the Wolverines and the Sooners. One of them happens to be a true freshman who's going to be making his first start on the road. Now, you also have heard me say over the last couple of weeks, and certainly even in Monday's episode as I was recapping week 1 of the college football season, we should be more aware about guys making their first start on the road at quarterback because it is difficult. And you have no ability as a quarterback to recreate that environment or even imagine what it's going to feel like to walk out there on the road. I think that Norman is going to be on fire. I really do. That is a great fan base. Oklahoma is a great and proud program. In many ways, one of the preeminent programs in all of the sport, and they're looking to bounce back. And this is a big game for them because if you win this game, if you're Oklahoma, now all of a sudden that schedule which looks daunting in the preseason, in particular the SEC version of that schedule, now becomes a little bit more manageable. And it's a game that they certainly feel like they've got an advantage with a true freshman quarterback on the other side. Underwood was solid last week. He really was. I thought that he looked as good as a true freshman could possibly look. He was on time and on target. In fact, when you looked at the timing with which the Michigan offense ran and more specifically threw the ball, when I'm watching on film, I try to kind of count from the snap until the throw. And it's like, is the quarterback holding the ball? Does he see what's going on the opposite defense? And time again, Underwood was throwing that ball at 2 seconds, under 3 seconds. 1/1000, 2, ball out. 1/1000, 2/1000, ball out. He knows what he was looking at. And so for a young guy, that's important. And it's going to be very important this week because he's going to be facing a defense that I think is going to be much more creative, much more aggressive, and certainly more athletic than what he saw last week against New Mexico. Michigan last week leaned on the run game. This week, I think it's going to need to be a little bit more throwing the football just because it's a better team that they're facing. And I think they're going to need to incorporate the athleticism of that young quarterback, which we didn't see a week ago with Bryce Underwood on the run on the outside with his legs. Justice Haynes, their running back, Big game against New Mexico. They feel confident in the way that they can run the football. Their offensive line certainly better running the football than they are in pass protection. So I think it's going to be crucial for them, in particular with the crowd noise, to get a lead early. Okay, so Michigan, watch out for that, trying to get a lead early. On the opposite side, how about OU? John Mateer transferred in from Washington State. I thought that was one of the better transfer moves in the entire offseason, any quarterback, any location. And he also brought his offensive coordinator in, Arbuckle. So his familiarity with the offense has been crucial now in the offseason, in fall camp, and now certainly early in the season because the language is the same for John Mateer. Oklahoma did not run it all that great against Illinois State, which is a bit of a worry. 3.2 yards per carry, that needs to be better. Jaden Ott, which was a big transfer get for them in the offseason from Cal, he didn't really do anything in that game. In fact, he was only in for about 4 snaps in that game. Brent Venables was asked after the game about Jaden Ott, and he said, yeah, he's one of the most explosive guys in college football. We just wanted to ease him in. So it has me wondering, like, one, is Jaden not totally healthy? I think that's a question mark. And two, were they just waiting for this game to unleash what they feel, in his words, to be one of the more explosive players in college football? Mateer will have Deion Burks to throw to on the outside. Keontez Lewis, he had a big game last week. He was a transfer from Southern Illinois. One big thing to pay attention to early in this game is that Michigan's defense, still without Rod Moore, can't get healthy, so he's not back on the field. Remember, he had a knee injury, what feels like, 18 months ago. He is not healthy, likely not going to play. And then Jayshawn Barham. He's the one that got suspended, and if you listened to the show yesterday, you got my full thoughts on the targeting penalty, this specific targeting penalty, and more specifically, my hatred of the fact that we attach an ejection to the targeting call in college football, which means, because it happened in the second half last week, that Barham will not be playing in the first half. Talked to some people around Michigan, and they feel like, you know what? I think we're going to be all right. They'd obviously rather have Barham on the field for the entire 60 minutes. They're not going to have that. They do feel really good about the depth of their linebacker core, and more specifically, a guy named Jimmy Rolder. Jimmy Rolder is a guy that is not a starter, but he certainly is a guy that they feel like is starter caliber. Oklahoma is favored by 5.5. I think that might be too many. I tell you what, I'm going to pick Oklahoma to win 28-24, but Michigan covers the 5.5. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.